She was 8 months pregnant when she found the messages. 2:47 in the morning. Her billionaire husband passed out drunk on their $15 million couch, his phone unlocked in her trembling hands. The texts were brutal. Crude jokes about the wife versus the upgrade, plans to divorce her the moment the baby was born, photos of his mistress in lingerie, timestamped just hours earlier. But here's the thing about Victoria Blackwell. She wasn't just a betrayed wife. She was a Yale-educated art curator who'd once authenticated million-dollar forgeries. She knew how to spot lies. She knew how to find what people tried to hide, and what she found in the next 72 hours would destroy a $2 billion empire. Hidden offshore accounts, tax evasion, securities fraud, a mistress who'd been recording everything for 5 years, planning her own revenge, and one final twist that would make you question whether anything in their marriage had ever been real. This is the story of how a quiet, pregnant woman took down one of Wall Street's most powerful men, how she turned his weapons against him, how she won custody, won $1 billion, and made sure he'd spend the next 22 years in prison. But the real shock, what she discovered on a USB drive 6 months after she thought it was all over. A secret that proved their entire relationship, from the very first moment they met, had been a calculated con. Before we begin, if you love stories about justice, revenge, and women who refuse to be victims, hit that like button now. Drop a comment telling me would you have fought back or walked away, and subscribe. Because I bring you true stories of ordinary people who did extraordinary things when pushed to their limit. This is going to be a wild 60 minutes. Trust me. You want to hear how this ends. Let's begin. They say betrayal comes in threes. I just didn't know all three would destroy me in one night. My name is Victoria Blackwell, but everyone calls me Tori. At 2:47 in the morning on a Tuesday in October, I stood alone in our $15 million penthouse overlooking Central Park, 8 months pregnant, holding my husband's phone in trembling hands. The screen glowed in the darkness like a window into hell. Chase Blackwell, my husband of 3 years, was passed out on our Italian leather couch. He'd stumbled in an hour ago, reeking of scotch and expensive perfume that wasn't mine. This wasn't unusual. For the past year, Chase had been working late, 4 or 5 nights a week, emergency board meetings, international calls, client dinners that somehow required him to stay at the Greenwich Hotel instead of coming home. I'd believed him because I wanted to, because I'd given up everything to be his wife. 3 years ago, I was a rising star at Christie's auction house, curating million-dollar art collections. Then I met Chase at a Met Gala fundraiser. He was magnetic, ambitious, brilliant. He swept me off my feet with a whirlwind courtship that felt like a fairy tale. 6 months later, we were married. He asked me to quit my job. "You don't need to work," he'd said, kissing my forehead. "Let me take care of you, build our life together." I thought it was romantic. I didn't realize I was signing away my independence. His phone had buzzed incessantly for the past hour, lighting up the dark living room like a strobe. Finally, I picked it up. No passcode. He was too drunk to remember to lock it. The first thing I saw was a group chat called The Wolves. Chase, his business partner, Richard Crane, and 3 other executives from Blackwell Capital. Richard Chase still at the nest. Chase, where else wife's asleep by 9 every night now. 8 months pregnant and boring as hell. Michael. Meanwhile, Sienna's waiting for you in lingerie. Trade up complete. Chase, almost. 3 more weeks until the kid drops. Then I'm free. The messages went back months. Crude jokes about the wife versus the upgrade. Photos I couldn't bear to look at. Text after text about Sienna Ross, a junior partner at his firm. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I scrolled further. Found his private messages with Sienna. Hundreds of them. The most recent was from 6 hours ago, time-stamped while I'd been sitting alone at dinner, waiting for him to come home. Sienna. Can't wait until you're free. She's due in 3 weeks, right? Chase. Counting down the days, then we file. She signed a prenup, $5 million, and she's gone. Clean break. Sienna. What about the baby? Chase wanted a son. It's a girl. Nannies exist for a reason. I pressed my hand to my belly, where my daughter, my Emma, was sleeping peacefully. She kicked gently, as if sensing my distress. The tears came then, hot and bitter. But underneath the pain, something else was growing, something cold and calculating. I'd spent a year being the perfect wife, smiling at his business dinners, decorating our sterile penthouse, attending charity galas in designer dresses while my career gathered dust. I'd given up my friends because they weren't at his level. I'd signed a prenuptial agreement his lawyers drew up because I trusted him. $5 million. That's what 3 years of my life was worth to Chase Blackwell. His net worth was $2.1 billion. His company, Blackwell Capital, had gone public last year in one of the biggest IPOs in Wall Street history. He owned properties in Manhattan, the Hamptons, and Miami. He collected art worth hundreds of millions. And I would walk away with $5 million and no rights to anything we'd built together. I took screenshots, hundreds of them, emailed them to myself from his account, documented everything. Then I called the one person I knew I could trust. Harper, my voice cracked. I need your help. Harper Wells had been my roommate at Yale. We'd stayed close until Chase systematically cut her out of my life, claiming she was too negative and held me back. I hadn't spoken to her in 2 years. Tori, she sounded instantly alert despite the hour. What's wrong? Everything, I whispered. Harper, he's been cheating on me the entire pregnancy, and he's planning to divorce me the moment the baby's born. There was a long pause. When Harper spoke again, her voice was hard. She was an investigative journalist for the New York Times, and I could hear her mind already working. Document everything. Don't confront him. Not yet. Tori, listen to me very carefully. You need a lawyer, not just any lawyer. You need Diane Hartford, the divorce attorney, the Shark of Park Avenue. She's never lost a case. Can you get to her office tomorrow? I looked at Chase, still passed out, oblivious to the fact that his world was about to implode. Yeah, I said. I can do that. Diane Hartford's office was everything I expected. 53rd floor of a midtown tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Furniture that cost more than most people's cars. She sat behind a glass desk, 60 years old with steel gray hair and eyes like a predator. I'd called at 8 a.m. She'd agreed to see me at 10. Now I sat across from her, 8 months pregnant in a Chanel maternity dress, while she reviewed the screenshots on my phone. How far along? She asked without looking up. 36 weeks. And he doesn't know you know. No. I left before he woke up. Diane finally looked at me. You have good instincts. Most women in your position would have confronted him immediately, screamed, thrown things, given him time to cover his tracks. She tapped my phone. This is gold, but it's not enough. My heart sank. What do you mean? You signed a prenup. I'm assuming his lawyers drew it up. Yes, $5 million in the event of divorce, and you get nothing else. No claim to his business, properties, future earnings. Nothing? Diane leaned back in her chair. Then we need to invalidate the prenup, and there's only one way to do that. How? We prove he committed fraud when you signed it. Specifically, that he failed to fully disclose his assets. If we can show he deliberately hid significant wealth before your marriage, the entire agreement becomes void. Hope flickered in my chest. Can you find that? Not me, but I know someone who can. She picked up her phone. Mitchell, I need a forensic accountant. Best you've got. Send them to my office today. She hung up and looked at me. My retainer is $50,000. Can you access that without your husband knowing? I thought of the personal account Chase gave me, an allowance of $10,000 a month for personal expenses. I'd been saving it because I had nothing to spend it on. Yes. Good. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home, act normal. Don't change anything. Don't give him any indication you know. Can you do that? I thought of Emma, growing inside me, depending on me to be strong. Yes, I said. I can do that. The forensic accountant arrived that afternoon. His name was James Mitchell, and he looked like an accountant, glasses, rumpled suit, tired eyes that lit up when Diane explained what we needed. Wire transfers, he said immediately. That's how they hide it. Offshore accounts, shell companies. Give me access to his financial records and I'll find it. I don't have access, I said. You do, Diane corrected. You're his wife. You have legal right to review marital finances. We'll subpoena his records under discovery. But that takes time. Is there anything you can access now? I thought about Chase's home office, the filing cabinets he kept locked, the laptop he never let me touch. Maybe, I said slowly. He has files at home, but they're locked. Harper's voice came from the doorway. I hadn't even heard her arrive. Then we picked the locks. She walked in like she owned the place, carrying 2 coffees. She handed one to me and kissed my cheek. Been 2 years too long. Tor. Diane raised an eyebrow. And you are? Harper Wells, New York Times, and Tori's best friend. She looked at me. I've been digging into Chase Blackwell since you called. Want to know what I found? We all leaned forward. 5 years ago, before he married you, Chase made a series of investments in early-stage tech companies, cryptocurrency, AI startups, biotech. He used money from his first major bonus at his old firm. The investments went through a limited liability company registered in the Cayman Islands. James Mitchell whistled low. Offshore, classic move. The LLC is called Apex Holdings, Harper continued. And according to public filings I found buried in corporate records, it's worth approximately $127 million. The room went silent. He never disclosed this in the prenup, Diane asked me. I shook my head, stunned. I never even knew it existed. Diane smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then we have him. Failure to disclose assets of that magnitude constitutes fraud. The prenup is void. You're entitled to 50% of all marital assets under New York state law. How much? I whispered. Over $1 billion. The number didn't feel real. It was too big, too impossible. But we need proof, James said. Documentation that he established this fund before your marriage and deliberately hid it. Bank records, wire transfers, corporate filings. I can get into his office tonight, I said. He's flying to Boston for a meeting. He'll be gone until tomorrow. No, Diane said firmly. You're 8 months pregnant. You're not breaking into anything. We'll handle this legally. Legally takes time, Harper argued, and time is something Tori doesn't have. He's planning to file for divorce the moment that baby is born. I thought of Chase's text. 3 more weeks until the kid drops. Then I'm free. I can do this, I said. I know where he keeps everything. I know his passwords. I've been his wife for 3 years. I can do this. Diane studied me for a long moment. If you get caught, I won't. She nodded slowly. Then we have a plan. Chase left for Boston at 6 p.m. I watched from the bedroom window as his car pulled away, feeling like a spy in my own home. Harper arrived an hour later with James Mitchell and a locksmith named Tony, who asked no questions. His office, I said, leading them down the hall. The room was pure Chase, mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls lined with photos of him shaking hands with politicians, CEOs, celebrities. Not a single photo of me. Tony had the filing cabinets open in under 5 minutes. I'll leave you to it, he said, pocketing his fee in cash. James dove into the files like a kid on Christmas morning. Bank statements, wire transfer records, corporate documents. He photographed everything with a high-speed scanner, building a digital trail. Harper and I tackled the desk. His laptop was password protected. But I knew Chase's passwords. He used the same one for everything the date he founded his company. The laptop opened. Bingo, Harper breathed. The files were all there. Incorporation papers for Apex Holdings. Investment portfolios showing the growth from $500,000 to $127 million. Wire transfers from Cayman accounts back to the United States. Tax returns that mysteriously omitted any mention of the offshore company. This is fraud, James said quietly. Not just on the prenup. This is tax evasion, securities fraud, wire fraud. He's been hiding income from the IRS for years. Can we use this? I asked Diane on speakerphone. Yes, and we should also consider referring this to federal authorities. But first, we use it as leverage. We worked for 3 hours. By the time we were done, James had compiled a complete forensic analysis of Chase's hidden empire. He's been very clever, James said, moving money through multiple shell companies, using offshore banks, timing transactions to avoid reporting requirements, but he made one mistake. What? He kept records. Probably for his own reference. But these documents prove intent. He knew exactly what he was doing. Harper squeezed my hand. We've got him. Tor. I looked around Chase's office, his temple of ambition, his cathedral of lies. When do we file? I asked Diane. Tomorrow morning. We'll have the petition for dissolution of marriage delivered to his office at 10 a.m., right when he's in the middle of his board meeting. A maximum humiliation, Harper said with satisfaction. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was tired, bone-deep exhaustion that came from carrying a baby in the weight of betrayal. I need to pack, I said quietly. I can't stay here anymore. Where will you go? Harper asked. Hotel. Maybe. I don't know. My place, Harper said firmly. It's small, but it's yours for as long as you need. That night, I packed a single suitcase, clothes, toiletries, and the few personal items that still felt like mine. The art books from my old career, photos of my parents, the ultrasound pictures of Emma. I left my wedding ring on the dresser. At midnight, I took one last walk through the penthouse. $15 million of cold marble and expensive furniture. A museum. Not a home. I didn't feel sad leaving. I felt free. The legal messenger arrived at Blackwell Capital at exactly 10 a.m. on Wednesday. Chase was in the main conference room with his board of directors, presenting quarterly earnings. Harper had convinced her editor to send a photographer, claiming they were doing a profile on successful hedge fund managers. The photographer captured the exact moment the messenger walked in. Chase's face as he opened the envelope would become iconic. Shock, rage, and then, most satisfying of all, fear. I wasn't there to see it. I was at Harper's studio apartment in Brooklyn, feeding Emma tiny movements through my belly, trying to stay calm. Harper live texted me updates. Harper, messenger just walked in. Chase looks confused. Harper, he's reading. Oh my God, Tor. His face just went white. Harper, he's calling someone. Probably his lawyer. Harper, board members are whispering. This is better than HBO. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Chase. I let it go to voicemail. He called 6 more times. Then the text started. Chase. What the hell is this? Chase, call me now. Chase. Tori, this is insane. We need to talk. Chase. You're making a huge mistake. Chase. My lawyers will destroy you. I blocked his number. Diane called an hour later. His attorney just contacted me. Richard Gallardo. Very expensive, very aggressive. He wants to negotiate. What did you say? I said we'll see him in court. He's already trying to spin this. Claims you're mentally unstable, that pregnancy hormones are making you irrational. I laughed bitterly. Of course he is. Tori, you need to prepare yourself. He's going to fight dirty. This is about to get very ugly. She had no idea how right she was. The first story hit TMZ at 2 p.m. Billionaire hedge fund CEO's pregnant wife files for divorce. Sources say she's been having an affair with building staff. I stared at my phone in disbelief. The article claimed I'd been sleeping with Marcus, the concierge in our building. It included eyewitness testimony from a resident who'd supposedly seen us together. Security footage timestamps showing me in the lobby late at night. It was all fabricated. I'd barely spoken to Marcus beyond polite hellos, but the story went viral. Within an hour, Page 6 picked it up, then the Daily Mail. By evening, I was trending on Twitter. Gold digger, cheating while pregnant. She deserves nothing. The comments were vicious. My Instagram, which I'd barely used, was flooded with hate messages. People found my old work email and sent threats. Harper held me while I cried. This is what powerful men do when they're losing. They destroy your credibility. How did he do this so fast? Money. He paid people to lie. Probably doctored the security footage. It's all fake. Tor. Everyone who matters knows it's fake. But it didn't matter what was true. The story was out there. My parents called, my mother crying, my father disappointed and confused. Old colleagues from Christie's texted, some supportive, many silent. Chase was destroying my reputation before the legal battle even began. Diane called an emergency meeting. We need to respond. Hold a press conference. Tell your side. No, I said. That's what he wants. A public fight, more headlines, more drama. Then what do you suggest? We stay quiet, let him think he's winning, and we prepare for court. Harper squeezed my hand. You sure about this? I thought about the forensic evidence we had, the proof of his fraud, the offshore accounts. I'm sure. Let him think I'm weak. Let him underestimate me. It'll make his fall even harder. But that night, alone in Harper's tiny bathroom, I looked at myself in the mirror. 8 months pregnant, publicly humiliated, facing a man with unlimited resources and no conscience. For the first time, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. I didn't know then that things were about to get so much worse. It happened 3 days after I filed for divorce. I woke at 4 a.m. with cramps that took my breath away. Not Braxton Hicks. Real contractions. Harper, I gasped. Something's wrong. She drove me to Mount Sinai in her beat-up Honda, running red lights. The contractions were coming every 5 minutes. I'm only 36 weeks, I kept saying. It's too early. It's too early. The ER doctor examined me quickly. You're in active labor? We need to get you upstairs. But the baby William will be fine. 36 weeks is premature but safe, but we need to manage your stress levels. Your blood pressure is dangerously high. They admitted me, started an IV, called my OB. Harper held my hand in the delivery room. Did you call Chase? No. Tori, he's still her father. He said he didn't want a daughter, that nannies exist for a reason. He doesn't get to be here. The labor lasted 6 hours. Emma Rose Blackwell was born at 10:47 a.m., weighing 5 pounds 3 ounces. Tiny, perfect, with a head full of dark hair and lungs that worked just fine. They placed her on my chest and I sobbed. Not from pain, but from overwhelming love and terror. I was responsible for this perfect little human, and I had no idea how I was going to protect her. Harper took photos. Emma's tiny fingers wrapped around mine, her eyes dark and aware, staring up at me. She's beautiful, Harper whispered. I was still in recovery when Diane called. Tori, I need to tell you something. Can it wait? I just had a baby. No, it can't. Her voice was grim. Chase filed an emergency motion for custody. He's claiming you're an unfit mother, that the stress of your false accusations caused premature labor, putting the child at risk. He wants temporary custody while the divorce proceedings continue. The room spun. He can't do that. He already did. We have a hearing tomorrow morning. You need to be there. I just gave birth. I know, and I'm sorry. But if you don't show up, he wins by default. I looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, 24 hours old and already caught in her father's war. I'll be there, I said, but the catastrophes weren't finished. The next morning, I tried to use my credit card for a taxi to court. Declined. I tried another card. Declined. All 5 of my cards declined. I called my bank. There's a freeze on all accounts associated with your name. Mrs. Blackwell, court order filed yesterday. On what grounds? It says here preventing dissipation of marital assets pending divorce proceedings. Chase had frozen everything. My allowance account, my emergency credit, everything. I had $63 in cash and a newborn baby. Harper paid for the taxi. I've got you. Tor. But at the courthouse, things got worse. The judge was an older man named Harrison. He reviewed Chase's emergency motion with obvious skepticism, but Chase's lawyer, Richard Gallardo, was smooth. Your Honor, Ms. Blackwell's actions show a pattern of instability. She filed for divorce with no warning, making wild accusations of hidden assets with no proof. We have proof, Diane interjected. Substantial forensic evidence that Mr. Blackwell, allegedly, Gallardo cut in. My client denies these allegations completely. Meanwhile, Ms. Blackwell's behavior has been erratic. The stress she created caused premature labor, putting the child at risk. We believe, for the safety of the infant, she should be placed in Mr. Blackwell's custody until Ms. Blackwell's mental state can be properly evaluated. I stood up, Emma in my arms. Your Honor, I'm not unstable. I'm protecting my daughter from a man who said he didn't want her, who's been planning to abandon her since before she was born. Judge Harrison looked at me with something like pity. Mrs. Blackwell, sit down. But ought to sit down. I sat. I'm not granting custody to either party today, but I am ordering a psychological evaluation for both parents. And Miss Blackwell, you will undergo immediate evaluation. Until that's complete, I'm ordering supervised visitation only. Supervised, I repeated. She's my daughter. I just gave birth to her. And I need to ensure she's safe. This court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, I finally broke. He's going to take her. I sobbed into Harper's shoulder. Emma was sleeping against my chest, oblivious. He's going to take my baby. No, Harper said fiercely. He's not. We're going to fight this. But that night, the third catastrophe hit. Diane Hartford called. Her voice was different, distant. Tori, I need to inform you that I'm withdrawing from your case. The words didn't make sense. What? I've discovered a conflict of interest. Blackwell Capital is one of my firm's largest clients. I should have disclosed this earlier. I'm sorry. You knew, I said slowly. You knew from the beginning. I thought I could manage it. I was wrong. I'll refund your retainer. I'm recommending you to several other attorneys. No one will take my case, I interrupted. Not against Chase Blackwell. You know that. Her silence confirmed it. Good luck, Tori, she said, and hung up. I sat in Harper's tiny studio apartment, Emma asleep in a borrowed bassinet. No money, no lawyer, no way to fight. I thought I'd been fighting a man. I hadn't realized I was fighting an empire. And empires don't lose. I spent 5 days in hell. No lawyer would take my case. I called 17 firms. The moment they heard Chase Blackwell, they found excuses. Too busy. Conflict of interest. Not their area of expertise. The supervised visitation was humiliating. A social worker sat in Harper's living room while I fed my own daughter, taking notes, evaluating whether I was fit. Chase never even showed up for his scheduled visits. My parents stopped calling after the tabloid stories intensified. Someone leaked medical records from my pregnancy, claiming I'd been treated for emotional disability. More lies, but effective ones. I was alone except for Harper, and then Harper found something. She burst into the apartment on day 6, laptop under her arm, eyes bright with discovery. I've been investigating Sienna Ross, she said, Chase's mistress. Want to know what I found? I was too tired to care. What? Sienna Ross doesn't exist. Not really, it's an alias. That got my attention. What? Harper opened her laptop. Her real name is Sarah Colton. 5 years ago, she was a paralegal at Meridian Financial, small investment firm. Chase's company launched a hostile takeover, destroyed Meridian completely, bankrupted everyone. She showed me a photo. Sienna, but younger, different hair. Her father was Thomas Colton, CFO of Meridian Financial. After the bankruptcy, after losing everything, he killed himself. Sarah, his daughter, blamed Chase. I stared at the screen. She's been planning revenge. For 5 years, and she changed her identity, got hired at Chase's firm, seduced him, and Tori. She's been recording everything. How do you know? Harper grinned. It was not a nice grin. Because I'm a journalist and I know how to hack cloud storage. Sienna backed up everything to a private server. 200 hours of recording, audio, video, everything. She played me a clip. Chase's voice, crystal clear. The offshore accounts are untouchable. IRS has no jurisdiction in Cayman. Even if they find out, we can claim ignorance. The lawyers will handle it. Richard Crane's voice. And your wife, Chase. She signed the prenup. She gets $5 million and goes away. If she fights, we bury her. Character assassination. She'll be too afraid to continue. Another recording. Chase talking to someone about bribing an SEC official. Another discussing insider trading. Another planning how to fabricate evidence of my affair. This is everything, Harper breathed. Tax evasion, securities fraud, wire fraud, witness tampering. He's going to prison. Can we use it? Legally, maybe not. Obtained without consent, but we can give it to federal prosecutors. And we can leak it to the press. Once it's public, every news organization will cover it. He'll know it came from Sienna. She knows I contacted her through an encrypted email. She wants to meet you. Why? Because you're both fighting the same man, and together, you can destroy him. The meeting happened in a Brooklyn coffee shop, neutral territory. Sienna, Sarah, whoever she was, looked different in person. No expensive suit, just jeans and a sweater. She looked tired. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said immediately. What I did with your husband was real, even if my reasons weren't. I hurt you. I'm sorry. You're not sorry for sleeping with him, I said quietly. You're sorry I got caught in the crossfire. Yes, I respected the honesty. Tell me about your father. She did. Thomas Colton had been a good man, dedicated CFO. When Chase's hostile takeover destroyed Meridian Financial, Thomas lost everything. His job, his savings, his reputation. The stress caused a heart attack first, then, 6 months later, he drove his car into a lake. He left a note, Sienna said, tears in her eyes. It said he was sorry for failing us. He didn't fail us. Chase Blackwell destroyed him. So you decided to destroy Chase. I spent 5 years planning, changed my name, got an MBA, applied to his firm. I was patient. I became indispensable. And then I became his mistress. I recorded everything, waiting for the right moment to bring him down. Why not just go to the police? Rich men don't go to prison for financial crimes. Not unless there's public pressure. Not unless they're completely exposed. I needed enough evidence that even his lawyers couldn't save him. She pushed a USB drive across the table. This is everything. 200 hours of recordings, documents, emails, everything you need to prove he's a criminal. Use it. It came from you illegally. It might not be admissible in court. I don't care about court. I care about justice. Give it to the press. Give it to the FBI. Let the world see who Chase Blackwell really is. Harper had been silent, but now she spoke. I can write the story. New York Times will run it. Front page. But we need to time it right. Maximum impact. When? I asked. He's announcing a $500 million merger next week. Biggest deal of his career. We release everything the morning of the announcement. The press will already be there. The board, the investors, everyone. He'll be destroyed in front of the entire financial world. I thought about Emma, about the life I wanted for her. A life free from Chase's shadow. Do it, I said. Sienna smiled. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting 5 years for this moment. Thank you, she said, for letting me have my revenge. Thank you, I replied, for giving me mine. We weren't friends. We'd never be friends. But we were allies in the war against the man who'd destroyed us both. And together, we were going to burn his empire to the ground. The morning of Chase Blackwell's fall began at exactly 9 a.m. on a Wednesday in November. Harper's article went live on the New York Times website at 9:03. The headline, Blackwell Capital, a house built on fraud. The article was devastating. Harper laid out everything. The offshore accounts, the hidden assets, the tax evasion, the insider trading, the bribes, and most damning, the audio recordings, the Times embedded clips, Chase's voice, clear and arrogant, discussing crimes like they were routine business. Within minutes, it was trending worldwide. At 9:15, the FBI arrived at Blackwell Capital. Chase was in the main conference room, preparing for his merger announcement scheduled for 11 a.m. Investors were already arriving. Press cameras were set up in the lobby. Detective Paula Winters led the raid personally. 20 agents. Search warrants for everything. Harper had convinced her editor to have a photographer there. The image of Chase Blackwell, billionaire hedge fund CEO, being led out of his own building in handcuffs, would appear on every front page in America. His face showed pure shock. He still hadn't realized what was happening. At 9:45, the Blackwell Capital Board held an emergency meeting. Richard Crane, Chase's business partner, moved to immediately suspend Chase as CEO. The vote was unanimous. Every single board member, people Chase had considered friends and loyal allies, turned on him in seconds. By 10 a.m., Blackwell Capital stock had crashed 67%. Trading was halted. Investors were panicking. At 10:30, Chase's bail hearing was held. Federal prosecutors argued he was a flight risk with substantial offshore assets. Bail was set at $50 million. He couldn't pay it. His assets were frozen pending investigation. Chase Blackwell spent his first night in federal detention. The tabloids that had vilified me just weeks before suddenly reversed. "We got it wrong," TMZ's headline screamed. "Tory Blackwell is the real victim." Page 6 ran a sympathetic profile. The Daily Mail issued a retraction. Public opinion shifted completely. I became the sympathetic figure, the betrayed pregnant wife who'd been brave enough to expose her powerful husband. My phone exploded with calls from lawyers now eager to take my case. Diane Hartford called to apologize. I didn't answer. I hired a new lawyer, Margaret Foster. She was 65, had worked in family law for 40 years, and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. "We're filing for an emergency hearing," she told me, "requesting full custody, requesting to void the prenup based on fraud, and requesting 50% of all marital assets." "How much?" "Approximately $1.05 billion. The number still felt unreal. The emergency divorce hearing was held 2 weeks later. Judge Harrison presided, the same judge who'd been skeptical of me before. He wasn't skeptical anymore. Chase appeared via video from detention. He'd lost weight. His expensive suit looked rumpled. His lawyer, Richard Gallardo, was gone, fired or quit. I didn't know. He had a public defender now. Margaret Foster presented our evidence systematically. The offshore accounts, the hidden assets, the prenup fraud, the fabricated evidence of my affair, the witness tampering. Chase's public defender had no defense. What could he say? The evidence was overwhelming. Judge Harrison's ruling was swift. The prenuptial agreement is void due to fraud and failure to disclose assets. Mrs. Blackwell is awarded 50% of all marital assets, to be determined by forensic accounting. She is granted full legal and physical custody of Emma Rose Blackwell. Mr. Blackwell's visitation rights will be determined after completion of his criminal proceedings. He paused, looked directly at Chase on the screen. "Mr. Blackwell, you attempted to use this court to punish your wife for having the courage to expose your crimes. You fabricated evidence. You froze her assets. You tried to take her child. This court does not look kindly on such behavior. I hope your federal sentence reflects that." The gavel came down. I'd won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I made a brief statement. I didn't do this for revenge. I did this to protect my daughter, to show her that powerful men don't get to hurt people without consequences. That's all. Thank you. Harper squeezed my hand as we walked away. Emma was with a babysitter at her apartment. I couldn't wait to get back to her. "How does it feel?" Harper asked. I thought about it. "Hollow," I admitted. "I thought victory would feel better." "It will," she promised. "Give it time." That night, I received a call from an unknown number. "Tori, it's Sienna. Sarah. How did you get this number?" "Harper gave it to me. I wanted you to know the prosecutors offered me immunity in exchange for testifying against Chase. I took it." "Good. And Tori, thank you for not hating me." "I don't hate you," I said honestly. "You were as much his victim as I was, just in a different way." "What will you do now?" "I don't know. Raise my daughter. Maybe restart my career." "What about you?" "I'm going to work for the SEC, Financial Crimes Prevention, helping catch men like Chase before they can destroy more lives." "That's good. That's really good." We said goodbye. I never spoke to her again. 6 months later, Chase's criminal trial concluded. The evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted on 17 counts: securities fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, sentencing 22 years in federal prison. I didn't attend the trial. I had better things to do. 6 months after the trial, I was living in the Hamptons estate. It had been part of the settlement, a beautiful house right on the beach. Emma's nursery had windows overlooking the ocean. Every morning, I'd carry her out to the porch and we'd watch the sunrise together. I'd restarted my art consulting business, working from home, curating collections for private clients. It felt good to use my brain again, to be more than someone's wife. Harper visited every weekend. She'd been promoted at the Times after her exposé won a Pulitzer. She'd started seeing someone, a nice woman named Jennifer, who made her laugh. My parents had apologized, ashamed they'd believed the tabloids. We were rebuilding. Life was quiet, peaceful, Emma was 8 months old now, crawling everywhere, laughing constantly. She had Chase's dark hair, but my eyes. She was perfect. I thought the story was over. Then the envelope arrived. FedEx delivery on a Tuesday morning. No return address. Just my name and a Brooklyn postmark. Inside a USB drive and a handwritten note. The note was in Sienna's handwriting, but the words made my blood run cold. You deserve to know the whole truth. I'm sorry. I thought you should hear it from me before you figured it out yourself. What's on this drive changes everything. I hope you can forgive me for not telling you sooner. S. My hands shook as I inserted the USB into my laptop. One video file, dated 6 years ago, 2 weeks before I'd met Chase at the Met Gala. The video was security footage from a private investigator's office. Black and white, grainy, but clear enough. Chase Blackwell walked into the frame, younger, but unmistakable. He sat across from a man at a desk. The PI, based on the nameplate. The audio was clear. Chase, this is the mark. Victoria Ashford, art curator at Christie's, Yale graduate, trust fund from her grandfather. I need a complete background check. Family finances, vulnerabilities, social connections, everything. PI, what's the end game? Chase marriage, her grandfather, William Ashford, is worth approximately $300 million. He's 83 years old, in declining health, according to his will, which I've already obtained a copy of. Everything goes to Victoria when he dies. She's his only grandchild. PI, and you plan to, Chase, marry her? The prenup will protect my assets from her, but as her husband, I'll have access to her inheritance. Conservative management could turn $300 million into $1 billion within 5 years. She's perfect for this. Smart enough to be credible as my wife, naive enough to fall in love easily, and isolated enough that I can control who influences her. Peckham, that's cold, man. Chase smiled. It was the smile I'd fallen in love with. The smile I'd thought meant he loved me. It's business, he said. Nothing personal. I'll probably even be a decent husband. Just need to make sure she's dependent enough that she doesn't leave when the old man dies and I can access the money. The video ended. I sat frozen. Emma was playing on the floor, babbling to her toys, oblivious. Our entire relationship had been a con. The whirlwind romance, the passionate courtship, the proposal. All of it calculated, planned, executed with the precision of a hostile takeover. He'd never loved me, not for a single second. I was a mark, a target, a means to an end. My grandfather had died 8 months ago. Heart failure at age 89. He'd left me $280 million. By the time Chase was arrested, the will was still in probate. He'd never gotten access to a single cent. Everything he'd done, everything he'd planned, had failed. But knowing that didn't make it hurt less. I picked up Emma, held her tight while tears streamed down my face. I'm sorry, I whispered to her. I'm so sorry your father is a monster. She patted my face with her tiny hand, concerned by my tears. Harper arrived an hour later. I'd called her sobbing. She watched the video in silence. Oh, Tori, she breathed. He never loved me. Not even at the beginning. It was all fake. No, Harper said firmly. What he felt was fake. What you felt was real. Your love was real. Emma is real. The life you're building now is real. He's the fake thing. He's the lie. I gave him 3 years of my life. And you got Emma. And you got free. And you got justice. I thought about that. About Chase in prison for 22 years. About the life I was building. About Emma. Innocent and perfect. You're right, I said finally. He loses. I win. But that night, I made a decision. I called Margaret Foster. I want to file a motion to terminate Chase's parental rights. Permanently. That's extreme. Tori, usually reserved for cases of abuse or abandonment. He targeted me for my money. He planned to abandon Emma the moment she was born. He called her a disappointment because she wasn't a boy. He's in prison for 22 years. By the time he's out, she'll be 23. She doesn't need him. She never needed him. I'll file the paperwork. The hearing was held 3 weeks later. Chase appeared via video from prison. He looked older, harder. Prison had not been kind to him. Judge Harrison reviewed the evidence, the video from the PI, the text messages about not wanting a daughter, the complete absence of any attempt to contact Emma since his arrest. Mr. Blackwell, the judge said, do you have anything to say? Chase looked directly into the camera. At me. Tori, please. She's my daughter. Don't do this. I stood. Your Honor, may I speak? Go ahead, Mrs. Blackwell. I looked at Chase's face on the screen. You taught me something. You taught me that some people only value what they can use. Money, power, other people. You saw me as an asset to acquire. You saw our daughter as a disappointment to tolerate. Well, you don't get to use us anymore. You don't get to hurt us anymore. Emma deserves a father who loves her. You're not that person. You never were. Judge Harrison nodded. Motion granted. Parental rights terminated. Chase's face crumpled. It was the first genuine emotion I'd ever seen from him. No, Tori, please. The screen went dark. It was over. I did something I swore I'd never do. 3 months after his parental rights were terminated, I went to visit Chase in prison. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not Harper, not Margaret Foster, not my parents. I just got in my car one morning while Emma was with her grandmother and drove 3 hours to the Federal Correctional Facility. I needed to see him, needed to look him in the eye one last time. The visiting room was exactly like in movies. Plastic chairs, guards watching, other inmates with their families. Chase was brought in wearing orange. He looked terrible. Prison pallor. 20 pounds lighter. Gray in his hair that hadn't been there before. He sat down across from me, picked up the phone. I picked up mine. Tori, he said, his voice cracked. You came. I didn't come for a reunion. Then why? I needed to understand. Why me? You could have targeted anyone. Rich women, desperate to marry. Why did you choose me specifically? He was quiet for a long moment. You really want to know? Yes. Because you were kind. At that Met Gala, when we met, you were the only person who talked to me like I was human instead of a bank account. You asked about my art collection. You listened. You saw me. And I thought, this woman is genuine. This woman won't see through me. So you targeted me because I was kind. Yep, I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry you lost. You're not sorry for what you did. He didn't deny it. Did you ever love me? I asked. Even a little. Even at the end. I don't know what love is, he said honestly. I know acquisition. I know winning. I know control. Love, I don't think I'm capable of it. That's the saddest thing you've ever said to me. Probably the most honest, too. I stood up to leave. Tori, wait. Emma, can I at least see photos? No. She's my daughter. No, I said firmly. She's my daughter. You gave up any right to her the moment you called her a disappointment, the moment you planned to abandon her. She's 8 months old now. She's beautiful and perfect, and she will never know your name. That's cruel. No. Cruelty is what you did to me, what you did to Sienna's father, what you would have done to Emma if I'd let you. This is justice. I hung up the phone, walked out. He was screaming something behind the glass. I didn't look back. On the drive home, I cried. Not for him, for the version of him I'd thought I'd married, for the fairy tale that never existed. When I got home, Emma was in her high chair, eating Cheerios. She saw me and her whole face lit up. Mama? It was her first word. I picked her up, held her close, breathed in the baby shampoo smell of her. That's right, I whispered. Mama's here. Mama's always going to be here. Harper called that evening. Where were you today? I went to see him. Silence. Then why? I needed closure. I needed to hear him admit it. Did he? Yes. He chose me because I was kind. Because he thought I'd be easy to manipulate. And now I'm free. Really, truly free. Good, because I have news. Forbes wants to do a profile on you. From victim to victor. They want you on the cover. I thought about it. About using my story to help other women. To show them that you can escape. That you can fight back. That you can win. Set it up, I said. The Forbes article came out 6 weeks later. The cover photo was me and Emma on the beach. She was laughing, trying to eat sand. I was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in years. The article told my story, the betrayal, the investigation, the fight, the victory. It ended with a quote from me. I didn't do this for revenge, though that was satisfying. I did this to show my daughter that you don't have to accept being treated as less than you are. That power without integrity is just corruption. That women don't have to be silent. The article went viral. I received thousands of messages. Women who'd been through similar situations, women who were currently trapped, women who needed to know they could get out. I started a foundation, the Emma Rose Blackwell Foundation for Women's Financial Independence, $500 million of my settlement, helping women escape financial abuse, providing legal aid, teaching financial literacy. It was the best use of Chase's money I could imagine. 2 years after the trial, I was in my Hamptons house watching Emma play in her sandbox when an email arrived from an unexpected source. Sienna, Sarah, she'd stayed in touch, occasionally. Updates on her work at the SEC, photos of her with a girlfriend she'd met, moving on with her life. This email was different. Tori, I wanted you to know before it's public. Chase filed for early release. He's claiming good behavior, rehabilitation, remorse. There's going to be a hearing. His lawyers think he can get out in 5 years instead of 22. I'm sorry. I thought you should know. I read it twice. Then I called Margaret Foster. Can he actually get out early? It's possible. Rare, but possible. White-collar criminals with money sometimes manage it. We can fight it. You have the right to submit a victim impact statement. I'll do it. The hearing was held 3 months later. Chase's lawyers had him cleaned up. Suit and tie. Haircut. He looked like the man I'd met at the Met Gala all those years ago. Charming, successful, reformed. His lawyer gave an impassioned speech about rehabilitation, how Chase had spent 2 years in prison reflecting, how he'd taken college courses, taught financial literacy to other inmates, found religion. My client is not the same man who committed these crimes, his lawyer said. He spent every day working to become better, to earn redemption. Then it was my turn. I stood. Emma was with Harper in the hallway. She was 2.5 now, talking in full sentences, smart and funny and kind. Your Honor, may I speak? Please do, Mrs. Blackwell. I looked directly at Chase. The man sitting there wants you to believe he's changed, that 2 years in prison has transformed him into someone better. I'm here to tell you that transformation is a lie. Chase's lawyer started to object. The judge silenced him. He's not sorry for what he did. He's sorry he got caught. He's not remorseful. He's calculating his next move. I know this because I lived with him for 3 years. I know how he operates. Charm, manipulation, playing victim when it suits him. I pulled out papers from my bag. These are letters Chase has been sending to former business associates. Letters where he discusses plans for when he gets out, how he'll rebuild, how he'll get his revenge on the people who betrayed him. That includes me. That includes our daughter. The judge took the letters. Read them. His expression hardened. Where did you get these? From people who were disturbed enough to send them to me? People who wanted me to know he hasn't changed at all. Chase's face went white, then red. His mask cracked. Those were private, he shouted. She had no right. Sit down, Mr. Blackwell, the judge said coldly. He read more letters. Chase discussing offshore accounts he'd hidden that investigators never found. Plans to access them when released? Schemes to avoid paying restitution? The judge looked at Chase with pure disgust. Motion for early release denied. Mr. Blackwell, you'll serve your full sentence, and I'm recommending additional investigation into these letters. You may be facing additional charges. Chase exploded. This is her fault. She destroyed me. She took everything. You destroyed yourself, I said calmly. I just held up a mirror. Guards dragged him out, still screaming. In the hallway, Harper was waiting with Emma. My daughter ran to me. Mama, up. I picked her up, held her tight. Is it over? Harper asked. Yes, I said. It's really over. We drove back to the Hamptons. Emma fell asleep in her car seat. Harper drove while I watched the ocean pass by the windows. "What are you thinking?" Harper asked. "That I'm free. Really, truly free. He'll be in prison until Emma is 25 years old. By then, I'll have taught her everything she needs to know about men like him, about protecting herself, about knowing her worth." "You did good, Tor. We did good. I couldn't have done this without you. That's what best friends are for. Taking down billionaire criminals together." We laughed. It felt good to laugh. At home, I put Emma to bed, sat in her room watching her sleep. She'd never remember her father, never know his name. She'd grow up with stories of strong women who fought back, who refused to be victims. That night, I got one final email from Sienna. "Saw the news about the hearing. You were magnificent. I'm proud of us. Both of us. We survived him. More than survived. We won." I wrote back, "We did. Thank you for being brave enough to record everything. Thank you for trusting me with it." Her response came immediately. "Thank you for showing me that revenge isn't just about tearing someone down. It's about building something better from the ruins." I closed my laptop, walked out onto my beach porch. The ocean was dark and vast and endless. I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago. Naive, trusting, willing to give up everything for a man who saw her as a transaction. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who'd fought an empire and won, someone who was raising a daughter to never accept less than she deserved. Someone free. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi, my name is Rebecca. I read your Forbes article. I'm in a situation like you were. Powerful husband, prenup, trapped. Can you help me?" I smiled, typed back, "Yes, I can help. You're not alone anymore." Because that was the real victory. Not the money, not the revenge, but the ability to help other women escape, to show them the path out of the darkness, to prove that empires built on lies always fall, and that the women they tried to destroy, we rise from the ashes stronger than ever. And that's how Victoria Blackwell went from trapped trophy wife to billionaire philanthropist. From victim to victor. Chase is still in prison. 20 more years to go. Emma just turned 5. She's never asked about her father. She doesn't need to. She has a mother who taught her the most important lesson: never let anyone make you small. Victoria's foundation has helped over 3,000 women escape financial abuse. She remarried last year to someone who sees her as a partner, not an asset, and Sienna. She's now a senior investigator at the SEC, taking down men like Chase every single day. But here's my question for you. Do you think Victoria was right to completely erase Chase from Emma's life? Or does every child deserve to know their father, even a criminal one? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and the best discussions happened down there. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It tells YouTube to share this with people who need to hear it. Someone watching right now might be in Victoria's situation, and your like could literally save their life by getting this story in front of them. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they can fight back, that they can win, that being kind doesn't mean being weak. And subscribe to this channel, because every week I bring you stories about real people who faced impossible situations and came out stronger. Hit that notification bell so you never miss the next one. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember, empires built on lies always fall. And the people they tried to destroy, we rise. Take care of yourselves out there.